and when rapid speed down to 2500.
Good point, wherever you reduce speed to 180.
Blackbox.
All right, hey gang, how's it going? KP here, KP's Blackbox. Today I've got a special guest, new friend and client of the firm, Mr. Trey Sprinkle. Trey, great to have you.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Spontaneously, I told you walking up the steps, hey, we're getting ready to do a podcast.
Yeah, literally walking up the steps 5 minutes ago.
You're like, thanks a lot, Kenny. Thanks for the warning. This is how we do it around here. We just bring our guests into town and just throw it on you. Hey, man, let's go in the studio and shoot a podcast real quick. But you're a businessman, so you know how to be nimble and act on the fly.
Or at least I pretend, right?
At least, yeah.
So I'm going to pretend to get through this podcast with you the best I can.
Perfect.
Because I don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah, fake it until you make it, right? Well, you're pretty good at this podcast stuff. Actually, I would say you're really good at shooting things from a very long distance.
Yeah, so precision shooting is kind of my thing.
Yeah.
For a long time, I held the Cold War world record, 2,320 meters, first round fired. We were with a bunch of Army sniper instructors and just messing around on the side of a mountain. Before the record thing was a big chase, like, in the last, 5 years or so, it's been, how do we beat these records? We weren't trying to beat a record. We were just out shooting. And
just having fun.
Yep.
But one shot, one kill, huh?
One shot, one target. But, yeah.
Sure you weren't a Marine?
No, but I got a lot of friends that are Marines are my people. That's why we get along.
There you go. Yeah. Love it. Well, man, it's great to have you on the show today. We're going to get into that and into Trey's background. And as with everything on this show, a lot of our support and what we talk about is with veterans, Trey. And you're a veteran law enforcement, but hang around a lot of guys who are veteran military in the Special Forces community. We met this morning with one of our SEAL friends over at GBRS, and Cole Fackler. Shout out to Cole. Cole was supposed to have been on the show a few weeks ago. I was actually just thinking back. It was over Valentine's Day, and it was on a Friday. We were supposed to shoot a show. Cole texts me at like 7 a.m. says, dude, I can't make it this morning. Something's going on in the family. I was like, dude, I know what's going on. You forgot to tell Renee that you were doing a podcast with me at Valentine's Day, and you didn't know how to dig yourself out of that. So that's okay. I get it.
That's a good excuse.
Right.
It's one you have to accept.
Right.
Yeah.
So I didn't give him too much BS about that. So.
Well, it's nice that I beat Cole here, so.
Right. Yeah. I'm privileged that you've given us an opportunity because you have a really, really big following. You have a few million views out there, right, with your community. So it's pretty cool to have you.
Yeah, so I've got a YouTube channel, American Outlaw. I've got, I think, 915,000 subscribers. I gain about 50,000 subscribers a month, so we're kind of good in the algorithm. Yeah. Tens of millions of views a month. So YouTube is, I don't know, it's fun.
I think I have my mother-in-law and maybe I don't even think my wife subscribes to our channel, so. I think we're at what, 4 this week, Jake? So, man, you're in big time with us here today. So,
well, I have
maybe we'll help you expand your network by 4.
I appreciate that. I have 3 daughters, and so my daughter and my wife will, I get a lot of hateful comments on the internet. It's just what happens. You're just gonna get a lot of hate the bigger you grow, and so you gotta have thick skin, but. They will go in and just get into it in the comments with them. So I at least got a size 4 backup team that has my back.
That's awesome. That's great. So you're a dad of all daughters, is that?
All daughters, yeah. 3 girls.
Wow.
Tried as hard as I could for a boy, and it didn't work.
And that's all right. But that's how old are your daughters?
22, 18, and 17.
22-year-old seeing anybody serious yet? Is any man brave enough to?
Yeah, she's been dating the same guy for a couple of years. He's in the Air Force. He does intel in the Air Force, so good kid.
Awesome.
Yeah, the other two, no boyfriends. That nobody's braved that path yet.
Yeah. Well, when you have the friends you have, they've got watchful eyes all around them, right? And so,
It's funny. I had a friend of mine with me driving the other day, and he's like, I wonder how it is for you. Two of my daughters are in the car, my 17 and 18-year-old. And how is it that you are ever going to find a guy in today's world that matches up to your dad and all of his friends? And I paused about that. I was like, yeah, I'm glad I trained them tough, I guess.
right. Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm fortunate to have 3 boys, 2 girls, and it's a large family. It's been fun. It's been a lot of fun. So Jake, my son, in there in the control studio, and then our good friend Cody in there. Cody's one of 6, I think. Right, Cody? I think 6
Yeah,
kids.
one of 6.
One of 6. Yeah. And a preacher's kid in there too. And my talking with you last night that I come from a family background of spiritual leaders. So grew up in a household that was pretty strict, pretty crazy, but all of that to say that being in a world where you get to raise 3 daughters in the world that they have in front of them today, it's going to take a special man to be alongside of any lady in the world that we're in today. So
Yeah, I agree. And I have of course, I pray that my kids will have the same opportunity. My wife and I have been together for 25 years. This is be our 24th anniversary in August.
that's awesome.
But as a father and now as, a CEO of 2 companies, so I'm looking out years in advance. And so I've always said, I can't trust that there's going to be a man today in 2025, I know I'm not supposed to date these, but 2025, that is going to stay, have the fortitude, the strength, the grit to stay with a woman for 25 or 30 or 40 years. Of course, I pray for that. But so I see so many, because I'm 45, so my parents' generation, they all stayed married, just like my grandparents, and so our history is staying married. But this next generation it's easier just to walk away, and so I've seen a lot of people in my life, single women now that have been divorced and are having a really hard time because they were a stay-at-home mom or something. And so I've always said, okay, girls, before you get married, I need you to have a foundation that, though I don't wish this upon you, but if a guy is not man enough to stay with you, then you're not reliant on a man. You're not, you can go out and make it on your own.
It's good advice. It's great advice, actually.
Yeah.
Identify with who they are first and be confident in who they are. That's amazing advice. So Trey, one of the things that we do, and I want to get into your background today and have you share with our audience and maybe reshare with your audience again, kind of your background and how you and I linked up and what we're doing together now, and in my capacity of working for you to help you grow this new business that you have, which we'll get into. But this new business you're in serves a community that's very special and near and dear to my heart and your heart as I've got to know you, which is our military brothers and sisters. And so one of the things we always like to do on our show is always pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. And not only in giving their life, but also those that have had a living death, those that have been injured, those that are been disabled by making the sacrifice for our country to go serve. And so we always like to throw back a shot to say thank you to those and the Gold Star families out there who've lost a family member, and not so much even about death, but those that are serving today and still going downrange and still making a commitment to keep the freedoms that we grew up with and that our families grew up with. We just want to salute them. So, cheers to you families out there. Cheers. Jake poured that for us. I'm not sure.
I was thinking, can I tell what bourbon that was, and I can't.
Was
And I'm
that
a bourbon
was
guy.
that Rabbit Hole, Jake?
It was Rabbit Hole.
Oh,
I've
I've got a palate now that I'm.
I've not had Rabbit Hole.
Or you just know it's one of the 3 open bottles up there. So
Quit telling on me. I wanted to sound like a really smart bourbon connoisseur, but I remember. I think we did that shot last time. That's why I remember. But that was a week ago. So, all right, nice. So Trey, again, thanks for being on the show today. Let's start, if we can, with a little background on you and what got you to where you are today. So start with law enforcement for you. What took you into law enforcement?
So I was dating a girl through high school, and her dad was a sheriff's deputy, and he was like my best friend and my mentor. And I'm guessing at that time I was probably 17 when I started dating her, and he was 40-ish, 45 probably, so probably my age now. And he had been in the Air Force security forces for 20 years, and so I graduated high school in 99. And so as soon as I graduated high school, at that time in New Mexico, it was age of majority, so you could be a police officer at 18.
Oh, wow.
And so I spent, like, I don't know, a couple of years riding with him, like, every night, because you could sign a waiver and you could go out and ride with them. So I got to see more as a police officer than most anybody, because he was a senior sheriff's deputy. And so if there was a big case, big crime, murder, something like that, I got to be a part of all of that. But at that time, I grew up in Clovis, New Mexico, and so Cannon Air Force Base was there. And so just the kind of how it was in the 90s, just for so you guys don't not disrespectful, but for us it was, you only joined the military if you couldn't do anything else. Like, the military wasn't doing anything back then. You know, they just weren't. They weren't fighting anybody. They weren't doing any of that stuff. And so I was a gun guy. I wanted to do this. So police work at the time was way more action. And back then, you know, today, 2025, nobody respects cops.
Yeah.
We have these videos where kids are just disrespecting cops, and cops can't even do anything. I got a great friend now that arrested a guy, a very high-profile guy in town, last year for extremely serious crimes. He's on bail, and the police department told him he cannot go around the guy that he arrested because of harassment. And I'm like, what? Like, that guy he will end up in prison, and what? This is just how the world is. But back then, everybody loved cops. You know, the late 90s, early 2000s, everybody loved cops. And they really respected cops. And so I got to do the stuff. I got to do the emergency response team, the SWAT team, and so I loved it. I loved every single minute of it. I didn't want days off. I didn't want time off. I just loved every second of being a police officer in the early 90s and early 2000s.
Yeah. What do you think shifted in culture where cops don't have the same respect today that they did in the 80s and 90s? And
great question. I think a lot of it is social media. I think social media, while it does a lot of great things, I mean, YouTube does great for me. Thank you, YouTube. I love you guys. But YouTube also, social media also ruins a lot of things. And so, you know, when I was a cop, we were taught, I mean, the exact verbiage was, if somebody messes with a cop, somebody messes with you, you thump them so bad they don't ever do that again. And that's the language criminals understand. But then it started getting posted, and then we started rallying behind really bad guys.
Yeah. Celebrating the bad guy versus the good guy.
Right. And using them as the victim. Like, wait a minute, there's some, you know, without really getting into it, there's a lot of big rallies around horrible people that we made statues out of, and so I think that did a lot of damage to the police world. I hear a lot of people. I still am heavily involved with police officers now, and people are like, cops are corrupt. In my experience, I've never encountered one. Right. Yeah. The Uvalde thing, cops are cowards. In my experience, I've met one cop, one in all of my time dealing with police officers for, 30 years now, that one was a coward. Just one. You know what I mean? So social media takes the worst, one small portion of the worst, and scares us to where we think that it's broadly that, and it's not.
We had an unfortunate double murder here in Virginia Beach. I think it was 5 weeks ago now. 2 police officers, routine stop. They stop a guy. Well, they go to stop the guy. He doesn't listen to law enforcement's request to pull over. Goes on a little short high-speed chase, goes into a neighborhood just down the street here from our office, maybe 2-3 miles. And police officers go to get out of the car. The guy gets out of the car, shoots both the cops, and when they're on the ground, executes them. I don't know if you remember the story or heard about it.
I haven't seen it.
It was, these 2 young officers here, Officer Gervin and Officer Reese, both were shot down in a routine stop. And it was horrific. And these guys, every day, police officers go out every day. We give a shout out to our military brothers and sisters, but also important to not forget our men in blue and first responders as a whole, because even our fire department and rescue people sometimes get caught in crossfires where they don't know on every call, especially the number one call I would guess that you went on that was the scariest would be a domestic dispute.
Yeah, domestics. I mean, it's exciting. It's probably one of your exciting, but it's probably also the most terrifying.
So we'll profile here. You go to stop the dude from beating up his wife, and when you have to use some physical force, then all of a sudden, wife, is it called Munchausen or something? Where they?
I had a wife jump on my back and literally scratch me from underneath my neck to the top, and I didn't know it was the wife. I thought, crap, I'm being attacked. And I remember picking her up and throwing her off of me onto the desk, breaking the desk, and then arresting both. But back then, I didn't get in trouble for that. Today, you'd be in a lot of trouble for that. But, I think one of the things that's really difficult, so I have got to see, and as we progress in this interview, I think you'll see that I've seen both sides. I've seen the side of war, and I've seen the side of law enforcement. And so we have a lot of military people come back with PTSD and having a hard time with just coping with everything they've seen. We forget how much that police officers, as well as paramedics, firefighters, see a lot of, they see everything in America in your 15 minutes of worst.
Right.
Worst 15 minutes of most people's life, this is what the police officer is dealing with. And so the traumas that they've seen, the things that they've been a part of, but there's not the same level of Americans in general acknowledging, caring, or reacting or trying to help that at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, you're a cop, we don't like you anymore.
Yeah.
Oh, but we were the ones dealing with the child abuse, right? We're the ones that had to go see that. We're the ones that had to deal with the murder. We're the ones that had to, it's not over a 4-year military career or an 8-year military. It's over a 20-year career of seeing this time and time again. And I think there's a lot to be said that the law enforcement of this world, whether it's federal law enforcement, state and local law enforcement, they see a lot and they have to deal with a lot, just like the military.
Well, as we were talking with Cole this morning in our business meeting, there's a community of officers down in, I think he was talking about in South Carolina, that are one of the most hardened SWAT teams in America because of what they're facing, from drug cartels to these really bad people who their sanctity for life is on a meter from 0 to 100. They're negative whatever in terms of their care for human life.
Cartel.
I don't want to mention a cartel. Get my name on
Get your name on a
list
hit
with
list.
somebody. Yeah, don't need that. But these are really, really bad people that our law enforcement are the first line defense that we just don't even think about. And it really hit me square on this morning that, hey, these departments are having to use everything that the military has at their disposal. They're having to use here in certain communities to stop really bad people from taking over communities.
Sure, there's a lot of similarities. I remember when it was, because I did a lot of SWAT stuff. There was when I'm working with the military counterparts, and I realize for a lot of operations it's the exact same. I mean, they're a SWAT team that gets off of a helicopter and goes in and takes care of one or two people and comes out. And that's, our SWAT teams are doing it daily, and especially. Yeah, like the one Cole was telling us about this morning, like 300 hits a year. I've got some friends in Miami-Dade, about 250 hits a year. I think I guess it'd be interesting to know what a SOCOM unit might do. 30 hits a year? I don't know.
Right.
Maybe it's several hundred. I don't know. I know in early Afghanistan it might be 1,000 a year, but SWAT teams today are doing it.
Interesting. So in your law enforcement, what led you down the path of being a long gun guy and like taking really long range shots?
Okay, so I'm going to go, the young kids are going to call this cringy. But in 1993, there was a movie came out. It was called Sniper,
Oh, yeah.
Gunnery Sergeant Thomas A. Beckett, one shot, one kill. I thought at that time I always wanted to be a sniper. I was like, this is what I wanted to do. Either that or John Rambo. Like, I don't know.
Right.
I just got the Rambo knives the other day. I'm 45 and I got Rambo knives, Kenny. I love them. So
I love it.
I really was into it, and then it started with my dad missing an elk. So we grew up hunting. We've always hunted. It's what I love to do.
You're born and raised in New Mexico?
New Mexico, yep.
Now you're in Lubbock, Texas.
Lubbock, Texas. Yeah, that's what we do when we grow up. We move across the border a couple hours away. But and so I really just enjoyed it. And then, in your 20s, you can't afford anything. You're broke. And so I started shooting, and then I started shooting like the PRS, the Precision Rifle Series, and I did that professionally for a while. And I don't know why I don't know how to. It's been very hard for me because I have a school where I train people how to shoot. And so it's very difficult whenever you are good at something. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a good instructor at something. And so how to be able to instruct somebody to do what you see inside your brain is really hard. But I started shooting competitions, and then the Marines, I ended up running into some Marines, and they were like, hey, how are you doing? Like, what are you doing that is making you win this much? And I'm like, I don't know. What am I doing? And then so started to break that down.
And we Marines pride ourselves on being really, really good marksmen.
That's true. You invented the sniper program.
Right.
Yeah.
That young jarhead up there, when I was in boot camp, you're going to laugh at me, but I'm going to test your Marine Corps knowledge. In boot camp, I got awarded the pizza box.
I don't know what can I phone a Marine?
Yeah, you can phone a Marine.
I'll ask him right now. What is the pizza box?
Yeah. Just tell him this 0351 in boot camp got awarded the pizza box. Let's see what he says.
All right, let's see. I'm calling a gunner that was...
I'll put it to you this way. In order to get into the unit that I ended up in, I ended up having to shoot expert.
Got it. We'll see.
Yeah.
See if he responds.
Yeah. So
if it's not a real award.
It's a real award.
Okay. All right.
It's a real award. There's 3 awards given in marksmanship, basic marksmanship in the Marine Corps. So there's marksman. There's at the top is expert, right? The cross rifles. And then there's right in the middle sharpshooter. And at the bottom is marksman. Right out of boot camp, I got marksman. And it was, when you're an 03, you're a knuckle dragging infantry Marine, you should be shooting expert. And I shot all my life. I grew up around guns. I grew up in Durham, North Carolina, out in the country. My uncle taught me how to shoot. But I just had a bad day on the 300-yard line and couldn't find my windage, couldn't find center, and just my breathing was off all week leading up to game day to get your marksmanship award. And every 03 was expected to shoot expert. And I got the pizza box. Marksman. So, Jacob, pull it up and let's see if YouTube actually or the internet, pizza box or marksman USMC. Just put that in, see what comes up.
My guy's in Hawaii, so he's probably sleeping.
Oh, he's still asleep. Yeah. Yep, there we go. So you've probably seen before. We're getting ready to put it up on the screen here. Rifle marksman. See why they call it a pizza box? See what did it say up there? Pizza box refers to a specific type of tactical gear or equipment, typically a lightweight portable container. I don't know what they're saying there. Also, the certain military vehicles equipment, blah, blah, blah. Nope, go down to the bottom. Right there. If you get that, that's called the pizza box. Your buddy will know. So that's what I got out of boot camp. I was 1 score away from sharpshooter and I think 10, 15 points from rifle expert. I was so embarrassed. I didn't even want to graduate. So I was my platoon guide, which was the #1 Marine in my unit until that day. And I got fired because I shot marksman, not expert.
Dang.
It was horrifying. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not going to make it in my unit, Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team. Shout out the Fast Company guys. Or what the SEALs call us, fake-ass SEAL team.
So did you have an opportunity to redeem yourself?
At my unit. But
Yeah.
if I didn't shoot expert at my unit, they would send you back to the fleet.
Wow.
So the pressure was on. And I did. Every time Marines have to requal every year. Every year thereafter, I shot expert. But something happened in boot camp. Maybe it was performance anxiety. I don't know what it was.
Man, in shooting, I've shot a lot. I've shot a lot of competitions. It's just like any other sport. If you're an athlete and you play football or you play baseball, like those, what I call it is like the first go heebie-jeebies right out the gate. Like that's how shooting is. Like you can really mess it up in your brain and not perform at your best, just like in football, baseball, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One day, I'll show you my rifleman's book I still have from boot camp. All week, I was dialed in. I almost think that a drill instructor went over and messed with my rifle settings.
Did they give you a shot-out barrel?
Maybe. I don't know. What is that?
So a barrel can only go, and a regular AR-15 barrel is going to go somewhere around 15,000 rounds. And so it will start throwing flyers or opening the group up. So, I mean, you could have had one that was throwing flyers, or you could have had a barrel that was shooting 5 MOA or 6 MOA, which would mean you were hitting really close, but never where you were aiming. And so usually the way to tell is if you shoot a lot, when my trigger's going to break, was my breathing good, and that was a good shot. So I know that was a good shot. Or that was a bad shot, I pulled that one left, I pulled that one high. I can tell you where I'm shooting. And I'm guessing at that time you probably could too. And so if you're like, man, I did everything perfect, why did it miss?
Yeah. High and right. Everything was high and right.
That could
As
be
a left-handed shooter.
That could be Could have had a bad rifle. So it might not have been you at all, Kenny. It might have just been your rifle.
I'm gonna own that and say that was the rifle's fault. No,
Yeah.
that's part of life sometimes, right? We don't ever want to take personal responsibility, so
So we pass it off?
Pass it off.
Yeah. Give it to somebody else?
Yeah.
You know, Dad, as a guitar player, we often blame our guitars when we're playing poorly. So,
You say that again?
as a guitar player, we often blame our guitars when we're playing
When
poorly.
you're playing poorly.
So,
Jake is an amazing guitarist. So, 2 of my sons served in the military. Jacob serves in the largest, greatest
Lord's
army of the
Army.
world, the Lord's Army. Yeah, he serves in his church playing the. Actually, I just did it left-handed there.
Yeah, you did that. Yeah.
Playing the guitar.
That's awesome.
But yeah, I shoot a long gun left-handed. I shoot a pistol right-handed, so I'm all screwed up. And at the unit I was with, our primary weapon was the Heckler & Koch MP5. Secondary was a Beretta 9mm. And the M16A2, which is what, when I was in, was the primary long gun. I maybe shot that after I got to my unit a half dozen times because it was all like close range, 50 yards and in, CQB stuff. But that was a fun gun to shoot, the MP5.
Yeah.
You could
when
put
you come to
groupings.
Texas, I've got a couple of them.
Do you really?
Yeah, get your old trigger finger back. I guess it's lefty for you, right?
Yeah. Well, I had to, because of how that ejects right in front of your face if you're shooting left-handed, I had to learn to shoot it right-handed.
Oh, wow.
So, and it was really tough because I'm left eye dominant. But really learning to shoot with both eyes open and getting really good at that within 50 yards was not a problem.
So are you right-hander or left-hander?
I'm right-handed.
And you're left eye dominant. So that's what my wife and 2 of my girls are. So I've always made them shoot left-handed.
Really?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting now because my right eye, as I was telling you on the drive over this morning, is the vision's much poorer in my right eye right now. I'm going to probably have to, I don't know, get some surgery or something. But what I've transitioned to now is that instead of shooting with my right hand with my pistol, I've been working on shooting left-handed with my pistol because I'm picking up the target better, but also trying to work on both eyes open, looking at the front sight. And now with all the technology and red dot and all that, it's so much easier to shoot.
Yeah, so, I mean, a lot of lefties shoot left-handed but shoot their pistol right-handed because it makes it to where when you drop your rifle, it's not in your way, so they're
Right.
faster.
Yeah.
And you just, you just move it to your dominant eye. So you can still shoot right-hand, just move it to your dominant eye.
So great point. So like with the MP5, you would shoot, and when you would go through your transition drills, you'd sweep, right? So I was doing this first, and can you imagine shooting left-handed with that rifle, sweeping, and then I'm pushing the rifle into my pistol.
Yep.
So that's where the instructor was like, hey, wait a minute. We're going to teach you. Quit telling yourself that you're left-handed or a left-handed shooter. You should be able to dominantly shoot with either hand. There might be one that you score better, but what happens if your left hand gets shot off or injured? You got to be able to shoot with your right hand. And
So that's a thing for. I can shoot left-handed, but I'm not a left-handed shooter, and the whole shoulder switching isn't really a deal when you're actually fighting. But
Right.
I do see how they're like, I got a lefty here, we're gonna make him a righty, because especially back then that was the culture,
Yeah. Well, and that's exactly right. That's what I grew up in. And I was in during a time, I left the Marines in 99. And so everything up until that point was still hard sights.
Yep.
There was no EOTech or any of that stuff. That was just starting to come. And some of the elite forces was starting to get that stuff. But my first experience with nods, as an example, was this unilens, one, and it was so bad that nobody wanted to use it. It was just basically like looking at green stuff.
Isn't it pretty cool how far we have got to come in technology from, I guess since the baby boomers, the late 40s to 50s, from no cars or one car in the family to everybody has a car, to no TV, to plasma TVs or LED TVs. But in the gun world or the fighting world, like a lot of people probably listening to this weren't even alive during September 11th. But I got to have a bourbon with one of the horse soldiers that they made a movie about it, 12 Strong. And when they went, they didn't believe in the optics either. They were shooting iron sight M4s, and they were like, we don't want these optics.
Yeah.
To now, we got quad nods, we've got thermals, we've got, I don't even think most people know how to shoot without an optic now.
Right. And
Yeah.
Cole's mentioned the riser to keep your head up on the target.
Now they've changed the way that we've shot. Since I remember shooting, we changed the way that we shot a pistol 5 times. So for a new person now, it's like computers and science have made us so smart. If you take a golfer, do you golf?
I have clubs.
You have clubs. So if you take a golfer or somebody playing baseball, if you look at all of the old players, their swings would be different. If you look at the new players, they figured out exactly what is the perfect swing based off the computer, and their swings are all almost identical. Same thing in gun shooting. So we've taken, firearms and worked our way up in training to where we figured out what the ultimate is, and by literally sciences and computers, and now we know what the best is. And so you're somebody just getting into guns right now. You are at the highest level after very little training, where, I know it was the generation before us, but at least our generation was a big part in pioneering that. Not me specifically, but just at how we've progressed to be better with firearms.
And what has, and again, as a Marine, I was taught, some very, very high-level basic rifleman skills, and Marines pride themselves on marksmanship. But I would say I really still just scratched the surface of really understanding the mechanics of riflemen and true expertise in that, even though I shot expert. When you're taking a long-range shot, I mean, you're getting into some geometric stuff here that...
Yeah, so, I mean, you're doing long range. One, is your rifle scientifically correct? Are your crosshairs level? Is your bubble level? Have you torqued things down to their exact... We've learned now that you can't just take an Allen wrench and tighten the scope rings. You have to get a torque wrench and say, this is this 18 inch-pounds or 25 inch-pounds. And did we blue Loctite it? And after you have all of that, how is your ammo? Is your barrel clean? What is the weather temperature? What is the barometric pressure? What is your elevation? What is the temperature outside? What is the wind doing? And when you have to put all of this in, I think that's why I like precision shooting so much, is because you can't think about any other thing in your life or problems or stress, or you have to focus on what's going on in that shot. So it's kind of like a mental escape.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's an incredible amount of stuff that goes into a precision shot. It's really not easy.
Does the name Carlos Hathcock mean anything to you?
Sure, he's the Godfather, right? I didn't get to meet him, but
I did.
You did? Wow.
It was amazing. And just every Marine was in awe of Gunny Hathcock. Jake, pull up Carlos Hathcock, USMC. He was the most confirmed kills, I think, in Vietnam. Mm-hmm. But he came to our unit and worked with the scout snipers there. But can you tell me this rifle and the scope? Do you know that?
The top one right there's so this one right here, it was a 30-06. That's what he shot, and his optic right there was a Unerdal. This other one right here is a M1 M1A. So
with a suppressor on
with a suppressor. It was like if you took as my understanding of history goes, I'm sure there's a better gun buff than me, but after the M1 Garand came out, Ruger came back in and tried to do Springfield came back in with the M1A, and Ruger tried the Mini 14, and so that was really popular back then.
Yeah.
Mini 14 never made it, but yeah, Gunny Hathcock was he invented the sniper program.
Yeah, I met him a couple years before he passed. He came to our unit. I think it was maybe 97. And, I didn't know who he was until he showed up. And then when I was like, whoa, this dude, I thought it was over 100 kills, but it was, Google says here, or Wikipedia says 93 confirmed kills.
I think if I remember correctly, I'm literally just going off some memory here. He's got more like he shot 600, but those are,
The ones that they could
know that they
verify.
happen.
Yeah.
I think one of the coolest things about him was if you take the movie Sniper with Thomas Beckett, whenever he's crawling across that field, that was what Gunny Hathcock did.
Yeah.
And he did that to go shoot this general. I think he was a general, high-ranking officer. But he was said in one of his deals, he's like, well, my guys were getting ready to go home. So I knew if I ordered a guy to do it, their mind wouldn't be there. It'd be going home and they'd get killed. So I did it. So he had to crawl several miles on his side, ran into a couple cobra snakes.
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, that was incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the Marine Corps still. I don't. Are you familiar with Scout Sniper Association and
Yeah.
the whole politics behind what's happened with the stay platoons and with the Scout Sniper platoons that have been disbanded?
Yep, they disbanded them. They still have the sniper program at EOTG, but it's for MARSOC and SEALs.
Right. But Marines are like, hey, we actually need a sniper with every platoon. And so it'll be interesting to see in the coming changes of war tactics, how that's going to affect the infantry unit, which we'll get into in just a few minutes here. What other changes have affected the infantry unit comes to how the battlefield has changed and where we've seen that happen in the most recent era with the Ukraine and Russia, which you've had some experience in.
Yeah, so
So I'm going to hopscotch from this sharpshooter, take you to current day, and then we'll go back and visit what got you there.
okay, so currently, right now, I own a drone company. It's called EchoMav. You can see it at echomav.com, and we are a
Jake, you want to pull it up?
a technologies company, but we focus in uncrewed solutions for law enforcement, U.S. government, maybe soon civilians. And so I got there because at the time I was working with a friend of mine. His name is James Yeager, was James Yeager. He's since passed. He had the largest firearms training school in the United States. To give you a comparison, Gunsight's a big one. Gunsight's been around forever. Colonel Jeff Cooper was there. He had about 1,500 students a year. James had 7,500 students a year, and he just continued to grow. So he messaged me and he said, hey, I'm going to go to Ukraine, and I'm going to, work with those guys. And I'm like, well, you better not go without me. Like, he called me 2 weeks later. He's like, I got your plane ticket. I'm like, dude, I haven't even told my wife that I was going to go into a war zone, but okay. So we go over there. It didn't take them very long. It didn't take very long because so a couple of things happened while I was in Ukraine. So one of them, we had a friend who now works for the company, and he was already over there because his wife is Ukrainian. He's Georgian, but they live in America now. But he was supporting his wife's family. And so he was our interpreter when we were there, and we get there, and I'm coming specifically to work with snipers. Like, let me help you shoot better. And it turned into group after group of just civilians who have never touched a gun, ever. They've never touched a gun. Wow. And so they're scared of them, but they also know that people are coming to kill them. Americans just are hopefully never going to know what that's like, but the pressure of 24/7 all day, you're expecting somebody to come kill you and your family is a big deal.
All right.
And so they took it very serious, and they would come in class after class. We would do an hour of dry practice with them, class after class, all day and all night.
So those who are watching don't know dry fire.
Yeah, dry fire. So, there's a lot. Everybody thinks you need to go shoot a gun to be proficient with a gun. That's really not true. You need to practice gun handling and, dry firing your gun, reloading your gun, and you can do all of that without actually firing. And one of the things that was cool is by the time they were done to graduate our little program, they didn't get any papers or nothing. It's just what we considered a standard was you had to go through 40 hours of our dry practice. And I don't say dry fire because they weren't dry firing. It was practice of different tactics or ambushes and so they went through this, and then the Ukrainians weren't going to allow them to shoot at all, but because we were there and we said they have to, we wanted them to shoot 1,000 rounds apiece. They were like, they can shoot 30 rounds apiece. And so we were like, that's not going to work. So then we got them to where they could shoot 3 mags, but they were deadly to 300 after just 40 hours of dry practice. And so, yeah, you can get a lot out of not ever actually firing. And so in the midst of that, of course, you're an American. And at the time, James had a pretty big YouTube channel, and he's love him or hate him. He was a great guy. If you knew him in person, everybody loved him. He did a lot for the community. A lot of firearms company, Daniel Defense, James Yeager.
Got a few of those rifles.
Yeah, I mean, Marty Daniel started in his garage, and James helped him. Jack Carr, the books from him, James's audience got him going. And so a lot of people very love James and would say my business started because of him. And so me too, it was part of me. So we're over there, and he's pretty famous in this community. And of course the Ukrainian leadership finds him. And then they start asking us, hey, can you get this stuff? Can you get this stuff? And I'm like, yeah, I'm in the industry. Let me see what I can do. So I'm finding stuff for them. I find out that you got to have a bunch of complex licenses. So I come back to the United States, get all my State Department licenses. That takes a few months. So I'm getting all of that going. In the midst, I'm helping advise them on what equipment that they could use and not use, or put them in touch with our military in ways that might be able to help them. And I'm now bouncing back and forth between America and Ukraine, and I'm going back and forth trying to say, what does everybody need? What do you guys need? And we were a part of them helping them hack the first DJIs. We had a guy there with us that was from the group Anonymous, and it was pretty cool, like to watch a real hacker hack into the British Parliament, and he hacked into it, and he got Putin's daughter's name and all of her information, posted it all over Twitter. Like, you can go back and look at all this. I was in the room while they were doing this. It's crazy. So he's not an American citizen, so I can't help you there. But anyway, gets it, posts it, and then posts it to the London gangs, and the London gangs went and vandalized her house. So,
wow,
that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. Like, you see that in the movies, you're like, I feel like I'm in a movie. But anyway, so
did you ever get any phone calls from any 3-letter agencies going, "Hey, what are you doing? What are you up to?"
Actually, no. I mean, as I look back, I ran into them without realizing that that's who I ran into. Like, if you are just out and about in the world, you don't know it's them. And then when you start to get wise, you're like, okay, now I know who you are. Yeah. But yeah, early on, no.
And you and I actually have a close friend. We won't say his name today. He's retiring soon, but he's a real life Jason Bourne. Pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So these people do exist.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. They exist. And it's not like the movies. My preconceived notion of those guys were they were just going to ruin your life.
Yeah.
And that's really not what they do.
Not at all.
They're Americans. They love America just like you do. I mean, they have a job to do. They have to do their job. But my experience with them so far has been great. Right.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. They love their country. They're ideologues in a lot of way, in that they love their country so much that people are like, you're willing to literally give your life. You're willing to go into a part of the world where you're detested, you're hated, and you'll go by yourself. No backup. Pretty wild.
Yeah, it is wild. It is wild. I guess I got a little taste of that when I went to Ukraine, and there was
Yeah.
just 3 of us, and I remember getting on that train, and I was like, nobody's going to come save me.
Yeah.
Like, I remember getting on the train and thinking, you just killed yourself. Like, you are not coming back from this. This is your death warrant.
What led you, and we could probably ask your wife in a different interview, why in the world did you let him go do that? What inspired you to actually go do that?
So it's like a bunch of things. It wasn't one thing. So one thing was my choice to be a police officer instead of be in the military was one that my whole life I just was irritated that I didn't go do that. You know, when you look back at yourself now and you work with a lot of guys at the highest level, the tip of the spear, I realize I'm not as smart as them, so I would have never been one of them. But I would have been one of the guys that was over there, crushing skulls. I would have.
Yeah.
And so I thought I was getting that out of law enforcement, and I didn't. And I, like, if I was ever around the guys, or I just always felt like I'm like, if you're there, I should be there too. So that was a major downfall in my life that I wish I had a little bit more clarity when I was younger. I mean, I enjoyed every part of my life. I've had a really wild life, but that was one of them. Another one was my now 18-year-old daughter. She was, I don't know how old she was then. When was that? 3 years ago, so 15.
Yeah.
We were talking, and me and my friend were talking about our grandfathers, and she was like, well, wow, Dad, you didn't do anything cool like that. And I'm like, oof. And then, so that was one. And then another one was, it just, like, this is selfish. It just ticked a box for me that I needed to do. I needed to see what war was like. Now, do I recommend it? That's a tough one. I think men should see what war looks like. I don't think the average American should see it.
What makes you say that?
So,
What about men need to see carnage?
So when I came back to America, I had a really hard time. Now, remember, I didn't go there with the support of military, and I didn't have the support of a bunch of military friends that were seeing the same thing that I did, were doing the same things that I did. And then when I came back stateside, I didn't have the support system. There's no counselors to talk to. There's no buddies that have already done it, and they're bringing you, none of that. You come back, and now, when I was there, artillery rounds were going off all of the time. I remember this is a long answer to that, but I think it's important to get the context. The first night we got there, they said, hey, the Russians are going to attack this airport that we're at, and are you going to fight? I'm like, you give me a gun. Not only am I going to, like, yes, we're going to fight. Like, I'm not just going to stand here. Yeah. First air raid goes off, man, we're kitted up. We have no idea what's going on. Everybody's yelling in Ukrainian and Russian, and we're putting on our helmets and we run down to the basement. I'm like, what are we doing? They're funneling us in the basement. They're like, oh, it's just an air raid. To the last moment that I was there in Ukraine for the air raids, like, the siren would go off, and I didn't care. Like, man, whatever. Like, but artillery rounds or negligent discharges, you'd be surprised how many negligent discharges there are. From the first day, it'd be like, whoa, to the last day, just like you didn't even know it happened, or somebody shooting at you from the first time to the last time. It's just your life is completely different. And then seeing people who have lost their lives or lost love. Everyone in Ukraine lost somebody. There wasn't anyone there that didn't lose somebody. And so you come back to America, and I had a really hard time. Like, my girls were having volleyball things, and I'm like, you're coming in here griping at me about volleyball? Whoa, what? Stop. Or my wife, like, oh, the garbage man didn't show up. Really? Like, or just the average American. I realized that Americans are so safe, and they're so bored that they cause problems that never needed to be there.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had a really hard time with this for a long time, like a year, where I was like, whoa, like, I just want to go back over there, because over there you knew all the rules. It was really simple. People weren't starting problems. People weren't doing the backbiting or the, it just didn't exist, because everybody there is just trying to live together. Nobody was fighting. Nobody was talking about the other person or what Sally did to Susan last week. And so I came back to him. I had a really hard time with, we're so safe and we're so bored that we cause problems. Yeah. So I think why I think men need to see that is one, when you actually go and you see combat, a couple of things happen. One, it does some things to your emotions. It does. But it makes you where you're not afraid of anything. Like, I can't think of a thing that I'm afraid of. Yeah, there's somebody's going to hurt my kids or something, but I'm not afraid of a man. I'm not afraid of a situation. I know that I have the courage to act upon, even if it means losing my life. I've told my children this for years. There's what is courage? Courage is being afraid to do something and doing it anyway. What is being a hero? It's accomplishing that task. So now we make heroes out to be, but that is a heroic when you were courageous and you accomplish the task. It's heroic. What is the opposite of courageous? It's being a coward. So it's looking at something, being so scared of it that you walk away from it. And so one of the things that seeing war does for you is you can see the path that men take of being courageous or being a coward. And it lets you know that you are strong enough of a person to, no matter what the consequences are, you can become courageous. You are courageous. And then so it starts with, I have the ability to be courageous. Now I am courageous. Now it's no big deal that I will absolutely do the things that I'm afraid of now. And also to come back and look at there really are evil people. There's real evil. Yeah. There's real nastiness and there's real pain in this world. And Americans don't get to see that a lot. And I think it makes you a better father, a better husband, a better man. I just think all of that makes you a better person.
Yeah. So I think across all lines there, I agree. The sad fact is that, man, is that what it takes for people to be courageous? That we have to put our sons or our daughters in that situation for them to experience courage? Or can it be experienced in other forms, other fashion? Does it have to be war? If so, man, that sucks.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I honestly don't know the answer. I would say the answer is probably, sure, they can be courageous in other areas, but it's very hard to, were you courageous when it could cost you your life? Were you courageous enough to face major fears of, I'm going to go into this room and there's a guy in there with a gun? And you see a lot of guys like Cole from GBRS. That guy's probably went into 10,000 rooms with a guy and a gun. Yeah. But if you could break him back down, which would be interesting, to the first time he went in that room, that took a lot of courage.
Well, I've got a very, very close friend that I've introduced you to, Lou. And what's funny is that he said, I would rather be in the face of 100 Taliban than be in the room with my wife and kids pissed off. So, because there's a different...
It's easier to navigate.
There's a different courage that I have against this enemy than what you have to deal with when you come home. He goes, man, and it's kind of around what you said earlier, where the things that we care about that really don't matter and the things that we should care about that matter more, our brother to our left and to our right, and helping keep them alive, to the things that we find ourselves complaining about. I think what you're really saying, if I'm putting words in your mouth, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but Americans in general have become, since World War II, and I would argue, the greatest generation, we've become really soft.
Sure, we become really soft and we don't have any consequences. So, how many laws are there in the book? Thousands and thousands of laws on the books, and there are really no consequences, right? Like, it doesn't really matter what you do in America. There are some extreme, but overall, we don't have a lot of consequences. We can pay to get you out of trouble. We can pay to get you out of court. We can pay for most of your problems. There's not a lot of and then now we've become so soft that did Kenny do this because he feels this way? I think everybody should get over it, and it's okay that we just don't have those. Where if you step out of the United States, there's real consequences, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like,
your behaviors have consequences.
Your behaviors have real lifelong consequences. There's countries that'll still cut your hand off for stealing, or just big mistakes you can make from just being a normal American out of this country. There just is, like, and so we're really soft.
So when you bring that back now to what you experienced in Ukraine, and you and I were talking about this last night with some of the business struggles that you've had to face head on in the last few months with EchoMav. You said something really interesting to me last night, is that you gave yourself, or maybe you learned from a mentor, the 72-hour rule, I think you put it?
No, so the 72-hour rule, now we're going to go on your podcast, and I'm claiming this one because nobody's ever told me. This is
yours?
Yeah, this is mine. And
trademarked right here.
Trademarked. So I have read all of the books that you guys have read, all the self-help books, right? And everybody's like, you need to fail faster. And that's true. What they're saying is you learn lessons from your failures, and I've learned a lot. To get me here, literally, I had to go down a crossroad where I was like, I already made this decision, and it hurt me, and now I'm making it this way. But one of them is, how long does it take you after you fail to pick yourself back up and keep going on? Forgive yourself, get over it, even if you messed up. Because if you can't forgive yourself and get over it, and you can't be like, yep, I did that. And maybe it is, I screwed that guy over. Like, I didn't intentionally mean to screw this guy over, but my actions and my decisions screwed this guy over. I did not intentionally do it. But if I don't forgive myself and keep going, I can't ever pay that guy back, or I can't get ahead. Yeah. And so my rule is you have 72 hours to cry about it. You have a failure, I don't care what it is in life. 72 hours. Take it off. If you need to drink yourself under the table, drink yourself under the table. If you need to go to church, go to church. If you need to go to the mountains and hide, go to the mountains and hide. But man, on hour 73, you've put that behind you. You learn from that mistake, and you get back up, put your boots on, and go to work. That lesson has proved absolutely invaluable to me in the last 3 years. Of something happens, and I mean, it's just like, man, it takes the air out of you. You know how these are? Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm such a failure. And then instead of just going down your own depression, letting yourself get depressed, and I just say, no, like, that sucked. And then now I got to keep going. Yeah. That sucked. I got to keep going. So.
God, who's the big ball-headed seal? Jocko. He's going to love that I reference him that way.
Big ball-headed
seal. Big gorilla dude. He has a statement that's very similar to that when bad things happen to him, or have happened, or will continue to happen, he has one word: good. It's like, good. I'm going to learn from that. I'm glad it happened. It's good that it happened. Like his facility in California a few months ago, maybe it's been over a year now, burned down. And the first thing he walked in and said, and a person was actually interviewing him, I think. And they're like, Jocko, what do you think about what happened here with your gym? What are you going to do? He was like, good. We'll build a better one. We'll have better stuff in here. We'll have better ideas. He goes, I can't live in this moment. I got to keep pressing forward. And to me, that's what it sounds like with you, that You're giving yourself 72 hours. Was there a reason why 72? 3 days? What?
Yeah, so it was like in this business, like four major like gut punches. And I realized like there's nothing you can do as a human to kind of get over that 72 hours. That I can do. Other people are stronger, weaker, just however that works. We're all individuals. But it took me 72 hours to just kind of get over it. The initial shock of it, I'd say, like the ripping the Band-Aid off. And then so I'm like, okay, now I got to go again. If I don't go again, I'm letting everybody down. And so then it turned into, if I don't go again, I'm letting me down. So I quit making it about everybody. And I started making it about me and my personal goals.
What happens in this 72 hours? Are you on suicide watch? Is your wife locking you in a room? I mean, what?
So for me personally,
Yeah.
It's more like you'll probably see me shut down where I'm not talking to my friends or I'm not talking a lot. And I'm I'm not answering my phone. I am processing this in my head.
I think I know one of those with you recently then, because there was a point I reached out to you and had some business stuff I'm like, Trey's gone off the grid.
Right. That's what I do. Right. And
Okay.
But it's 72 hours. No matter what, it's 72 hours. Because also you can tell customers and other colleagues like, look, man, I was busy those couple of days and you don't look like, oh, you just gave up. You do it for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. You really let yourself go into depression.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to keep yourself out of depression if you start going down that path.
Yeah. It compounds on itself.
It sure
really
does.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really compounds and it feeds to you are a weak person. You are not worth it. You are not worthy. You shouldn't have been here. You're so bad because that happened. Yeah. Or everybody hates me. That's another one. This is, and so I just can't let myself go down that path because I've been depressed. It's been a decade ago, but I was now I don't do that anymore. Now I say, okay, I need 72 hours. And my 72 hours, I think the whole situation through. What happened? How did I get here? What did I do wrong? What did they do wrong? What could we have done different? Now, what am I going to do moving forward? And then once I get that, what am I going to do moving forward? I'm done. Like I have to let that go and I have to keep going. Because if not, I'm letting myself down. But I'm also letting a lot of people down.
Yeah.
100 people in my network. I can't do that.
Yeah. So the person that might be listening to this that goes, Trey Sprinkle screwed me. He didn't intend to. What do they do with that?
Man, that's a tough one. So one thing that I've learned in life is
it's just none of your business, number one, right? Because you can't get inside their head or deal with how they handle.
I don't know how
failure.
they handle it. I don't know how they handle it. I know that they would look like that as a failure from me to them, right? And they learned something from it. For me, though, I realize if you look into your life, because it's hard to look into somebody else's and throw stones at them, but if you look into your life,
right,
you're the best guy to some people, and you're the enemy to others.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I was able to do that, and I hear about, did you hear about what, Kenny did to this guy?
That Kenny Porter?
He's just, he screwed this guy. But you don't know both sides of the stories. You don't know what happened, and Kenny hasn't done that to me. Mm-hmm. So that's how I have started looking at everybody, because I realized there are people that there are people that love me. Like, they will do anything for me. And there are people who absolutely hate me and say that I'm the worst person on the planet. And that's just how everybody is. Yeah. And so, what do those guys do? I don't know. Like, I would, if it is at all possible for me to make something that I've literally never intentionally screwed somebody, but if I messed them over somehow, or I made decisions that ended up being bad decisions, usually they never let you have the opportunity to make it right, which sucks. And so they're not your friend anymore or whatever. Most of the time I'm like, man, I'd have rather been your friend than had done this business deal. But all you can say is I'm sorry. And whatever they're going to do is what they're going to do.
Yeah. And I think that's a good lesson for human beings in general. And if you're listening to this today, is that it's none of your business how someone takes or rejects an apology or being wronged. That your responsibility, you, me, and our own gray matter. It's our responsibility that if we feel like we've hurt or offended someone, whether it be a professional relationship or with your spouse, you have the responsibility to own 100% response of how you respond.
Mm-hmm.
But how they take the response, none of your business.
Right, and I think that's where it falls in the 72 hours. Like,
Yeah.
I have did something that cost Kenny a lot of money, and now Kenny's really mad at me. Kenny, I'm sorry. I can't make this right. You're going to lose this money. You're losing it. I got 72 hours to cry about that, and then I cannot care what Kenny thinks at that point, or I can't progress in my life.
Yeah. Warren Buffett, I think it was Warren Buffett I'm giving credit to for this, but he would say that if you run an organization and you have family working in your organization, you have to be willing that if it's time to cut ties with mom and fire your mother, you have to be able to fire your mother. And you have to be able to have that. Yeah, right?
I don't think I'd fire my
I've
mom.
got 3 children that work in my organization. And, Jake, you don't have to say anything to this, but I've had some tough conversations with my kids in the past. When, hey, at the end of the day, we have a responsibility to our client, to our customers. We have a responsibility not to let them down. And sometimes we do. And when we do, we have to go, how do we reconcile it? How do we make it right? And sometimes there's not an answer. Sometimes it's, we screwed up and we're going to lose you as a client or as a customer. But you have to have expectations in your organizations for excellence. You know, we're talking about the guys at GBRS. One of the things that I hear DJ Shipley say all the time is be a pro and to be 1% better every day. That should be your goal. And if you can have a 365% improvement from where you are today, can you imagine if we could improve just 1% a day? Or if you think about the stock market, if it was open 365 days a year and it was just 1% better every day,
Yeah, it'd be huge.
we'd be bazillionaires,
Yep.
right? But like the market, sometimes you have to have degression, you have to have depressions, but you can't stay in them, right? You
Right.
gotta-
So
you
call
gotta
them
move out.
recessions, not depressions.
Right. Yeah, that's good. That's good. So, man, I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the sharpshooter side, but just for the sake of time, and hopefully we'll have many more of these conversations. But let's talk about today and some of that stuff that's happened with EchoMav recently. Can you guys, you've got the site up. So let's brag on EchoMav and what you're doing now. And he's going to put it up on the screen here. There we go. What is this beast?
Yeah, so I'm the founder of EchoMav. I'm one of the founders of EchoMav, and it came out of being in Ukraine, and the Ukrainians kept asking for drones, and we were kind of on the front line of pioneering the new TTPs, techniques. How do you say it? Tactics, techniques, and procedures.
There you go.
TTPs.
You had me tongue-tied.
For how the drones were working, and so we created this Mark I platform, and we've got all of our special comms package and our autopilot inside of it, and it's a Group 2 drone, so it flies 15,000 feet, flies 100 miles away, flies for about 8 hours, and it works really good for a QRF team. And then we created what is DJI's competitor in the Monarch. DJI is no longer allowed in the federal government because it reports back to China.
Yeah.
And so we're proud partners with the United States Army right now on our drones and the Screaming Eagles.
Yeah.
And so
101st.
the 101st, they're pretty amazing. And
My son Isaiah, you haven't met him yet. He was at the 101st, was in Poland, Estonia, and then did his one tour and decided that big Army wasn't for him. He'd tried his way at Ranger Bat And long story short, just said, "Hey, Dad, I want to come back and work in the family business." And he's excelling here. He's doing great. So
Oh, that's cool.
shout out to Isaiah. But yeah, he was a war eagle.
Yeah. So they, so I have went through some amazing, it's been an amazing journey. So we started this, and I had a capital partner that at the time we thought was a billionaire. And we traveled around the world and tried to put together the best team, and we've got an amazing team. And this was just one of those things that every path that I've been down, it was like I could have made this decision, but I didn't. Or another one in partnerships is really big. If I come to you as a partner, I'm coming to you as a partner for your knowledge and your ability to solve problems. So a lot of my businesses, I was like, wait a minute, I can't even tell my partner about this problem. I have to solve this problem. And one of the things I've learned is, when I have a problem inside of my company now, I don't make it a me thing. I make it I'm throwing this on the table. Who can solve this thing?
Yeah.
Even if I know that I'm the only one that can solve it, at least they all know. So now none of my partners think that I've ever kept anything from them. Nope, this was a problem. What do you guys think about fixing this? And another problem I've learned is you don't ever have to fix anything, or very rarely do you have to fix something that minute. You usually can sleep on it. Sometimes you can think about it for a week. And if you let the other people in your life that you trusted to be partners come in, or you trusted to be leaders inside of your company, they'll come up with a different idea than what you had. And the solutions have always been able to be solved since then.
I think a key factor, if I can add to that, is even when you think you've got something fixed, don't be afraid to go back and break it. We all hear, if it's not broken, don't try to fix it. But I think one of the things that I've learned hanging out with guys in the spec war community, especially our friends over at the research and development side of things with Navy Special Warfare, is those guys are continually, purposely and unintended, breaking things to see, can they just make it better? Like one of the things I was looking at this morning, like Cole was showing us in the chest rig, when those first came out, they were big, they were bulky, you couldn't really get pronate laying on the ground to get a good shot off. And now this big vest has now turned into this little low profile, just enough to carry some mags and a little bit of equipment, versus being all geared out and tiring themselves out with 140 pounds of gear. They've learned to be in that moment and be nimble and quick and efficient. And so that took challenging the norm. That took challenging the status quo. And you're doing that now with drones. And it's pretty exciting to be part of that and to be along with you on this ride and your leadership there in that space.
It's kind of weird. This is the first. There was a book I read. What was it called? Blue Ocean Strategy. And it was basically thinking about something that nobody else is doing. That's where we are with drones. Is everybody's like, the technology in drones is changing every day. It's really not. The way we use them is changing every day, but the technology really isn't. So it's like nobody else has done this. We're making it up. So, what is the next way that we could possibly use this to help or to save a life? And we're making that up. And then we get a bunch of requirements where everybody's like, we want to have all these things. Well, the physics says that's impossible. But as we do that, we're developing a whole new program, a whole new way for the warfighter, a whole new way for just everybody. Yeah. I mean, there was a drone company that I just found out about that I think I don't know what cities they're in. They're in a couple of bigger cities where if a 911 call is made, immediately the drone flies to where the 911 call was and they can start watching. And that's crazy. That's cool. That's going to save lives.
Right.
Right.
And if inform the first responder. Can you imagine, like with these police officers here in Virginia Beach, that if they could have had just even a small drone launch and be able to take a look at what's going on inside that car before the officers expose themselves to a line of fire. And just having that device there and just that pattern interrupt for most human beings, right? To hear, bzzz, that's where, we want them quiet, like, Cole was talking about, hey, can we make them quiet? But to even have that pattern interrupt for a person who's maybe got nefarious deeds that they plan to take on another human being. Drones have been an amazing lifesaver in a lot of ways that is only going to get better. And some of the things you guys are doing that we won't get too deep into today is on the forefront of that. But, being the financial guy and helping you in a CFO capacity in the firm, one of the things I'm excited about, and this is no solicitation to buy or sell a security or stock, got to put that out there. But one of the things that you and I are talking about is that you have a pretty amazing audience of people who want to be involved and want to have some stake in securing our country. Do you want to talk about the idea of maybe getting some of your fans and followers having the opportunity to be involved with EchoMath?
Yeah, so I actually, we started kicking around the idea last night, and I never had thought about it. But I have been a blue-collar guy my whole life. Like, I would rather stand around a campfire and drink a beer with you than I would sit inside a fancy speakeasy in New York City and have a bourbon. Now, I can do both.
And don't hate on me for that.
No. I can do both, and I do both very well, right? But
yeah.
I came from the campfire.
Right.
I do find the people who came from the city have a hard time at the campfire, but
right.
people at the campfire can go both places.
Yeah.
And so I say that to say, like, I'm not kidding. When you see me on YouTube, you see my social media, that's who I am. I'm out hunting, fishing. That's what I love. I love it. But I also spend a lot of time in the politician's office in Washington, D.C. and in the bigger cities and doing the fine dining and doing the client outreaches. And I love the experience of all of it. But when I get into the next class of money, and I don't mean the class of money that
you drown in a rainstorm because your nose is so high in the sky.
Yeah. I'm just like, that kind of money, first, is just shocking to know exists.
Yeah.
But then how that money works and how they invest it and what they do with it is even more shocking. And then I'm like, what a great idea that you had. Like, why can't we take a bunch of red-blooded, blue-collared Americans and say, maybe you could invest in this, and maybe this can be a part of what you're doing, and you can be a part of the saving this country, the next war, keeping us free, whatever it is, saving soldiers.
Yeah. What was in World War II, the women, Rosie, God, why am I blanking? Riveting Rosie.
Oh, the girl in the, yeah.
But where the females had to enter the workplace because all of the males, predominantly males in America, were fighting overseas. And so women in our country got involved and went to work to help put war machines together. And in that theory today, well, what if you could have an opportunity to help make the world a more peaceful place and to give the opportunity to the small investor the opportunity to be involved in something really big. And what you're doing with EchoMath is really big.
Yeah, I expect in the next 5 years, EchoMav, when you think of Lockheed Martin or Boeing or Raytheon, you'll think of EchoMav.
Yeah.
That's at least my vision for the company. And so, yeah, for you to be just the average person that can't afford to invest millions and millions and millions, to have an opportunity to invest in a company that's a defense company that's going to be one of the top defense companies, I think it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so we're gonna help develop and create a way to make that happen. So stay tuned and keep your ear to the ground and your eyes in the sky
Yeah.
for what EchoMav's doing. But, to that point, the technology that you've created and what your engineers have put together, it's not only what you can do in the sky, it's what you can do in the ocean.
Sure. Underwater, watercraft. Yeah, I mean, our autopiloting system, we can put it anywhere. It's the best.
And you also, the fun side of Trey, so there's the defense guy, but the fun guy, the campfire guy, and me, like, I don't want to promote DJI, but I have a DJI 4 that I probably won't ever fly again. But it's a lot of fun to fly drones. So you have some ideas in the commercial space to make what is available to the military today, make it available to consumers in the future. That's in the blueprints, right?
Yeah. So, there's a couple of things. There's, one, when you have a DJI drone or an Altel drone, all of that data goes up to a server. So are they watching you? No. But can they watch you if they want? Absolutely. Which is why the United States government said you can't have that over here anymore, right?
Yeah.
So what if we bring this to the public and we say, hey, you can have the same drone that the U.S. military has, and you can have the same privacy that the military has. You can search your property, or you can fly around and record your kids, and nobody's going to hack that drone. Nobody's going to get into it. Nobody's going to see it. Even our U.S. government can't get in it. And so, and then in the uncertain times that we live in, I know there's a lot of us out there that are saying, we need to be prepared for such an event of EMP or, economic collapse. It's a whole problem set that is a very real problem set. And so this is,
You just made yourself a target.
For what? For who?
For every hacker out there, you just said they're not getting in it.
Yeah, they can't.
Now they're going to. Have you had guys try?
Yeah, we've had the best try.
Really?
Yeah, the best. I'm sure somebody can. There is somebody out there that's
Cody. Here you go, man. Cody, with a name like Cody, he's going.
He's gonna
I don't
hack
know.
him.
I'm just teasing. I don't know if Cody can actually hack or not, but
I'm happy to be the target. If you can hack into our drones, call me. You can have a job.
there you go. You heard it here.
Yeah, you call me, you can have a job.
Hey, Jake, put up Trey. We skipped over some of this earlier, but bring up Trey's YouTube page. Let's give our audience an opportunity to know a little bit about what he does for fun. So this is something you did for fun and building out YouTube, and it's kind of helped your business. The Army found you on YouTube.
Yeah, it's helped my business a lot. YouTube's
Subscribe, Jake. We need to subscribe.
YouTube's a pretty amazing platform for marketing, and YouTube's hard. YouTube is not an easy thing, but it is a pretty good marketing tool. It lets people know you're there. I mean, the Army did find EchoMav, my drone company, based off of my YouTube.
And that was one where you were following some guys.
Yeah, I was chasing Grand Thumb. So Mike Jones is a friend of mine. He has a Grand Thumb channel. I think he's probably the biggest gun channel. And so yeah, we did. We chased him around for a while, and then the Army found us,
right
which
there?
is cool.
Yep.
Yep, that's it.
Right middle, Jake. Chasing Grand Thumb. Come on, right there. There you go.
Yeah.
So where'd you guys shoot in Idaho?
We were just in a canyon way up inside of, right outside of Boise.
Okay.
And it's a bunch of public land up there, and we just went out there and we actually wrecked 2 drones making the video. So this video cost me about $1 million to make.
Are you serious?
Yeah, we crashed 2 of them right in the mountain.
Oh man.
Yeah. One of them, my guy just wasn't paying attention, and he didn't think about another mountain being there, didn't climb high enough, and we.
So that was actual footage then? This is your drone?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so this is him swimming in the water. That's Mike swimming in the water right there. Really hard to see him in the water.
Interesting.
Everywhere else we can get you, though. But yeah, man, it was
What was it about water, or what was the camera just
the water can't hardly see you because the water, like, gets rid of the heat. So
yeah.
the only thing we could see is if he stuck his hands up or got his head out of the water. We could not see him in the water. It was pretty crazy.
Wow. That's pretty awesome. How many days did you guys go? And how long did it take you to find him?
He can't run from us at all. We found him fast.
Really?
Yeah, he couldn't get away from. In his side of the movie, he gave you a lot of examples on how to hide from us, but there was nowhere he could go. We couldn't see him. It's really hard to get, near impossible to get away from a drone.
Which I've seen some pretty gory videos of guys trying to run from drones in Ukraine and, well, Russians.
Yeah, no, you just can't get away from him here. We would see him as soon as we got to an area where he was under the camera. We immediately picked him up because it was you see him on thermal, and then so now we can use a laser, especially at night. We had to do this during the day because it's hard to film at night, but at night we just put a laser on you, and everybody with nods can just walk around to you and let you walk into them, or just walk up to you. So there are some dangerous parts. I was showing in that video where you got to kind of get underneath somebody, or they could be underneath the bushes or something when you're trying to get up to them. But yeah, drones are tough, man.
What's some lessons you've learned in being in Ukraine and being on the battlefield, and what lessons have you brought back to help your drone company be better at pursuit, or anything that you can share with the audience here about how drones have improved the warfighter?
So I have a really good friend, and I think both communities would say that he is probably the most deadly sniper in the world, and you're never going to know his name. Those guys just don't talk about it, right? And they didn't need a media hype. You're just never going to know his name. And we were talking, and he was instrumental to helping me get the drone company going. And he told me, I said, hey, did you see in Israel that this woman got a bunch of medals for shooting down all of those Iranian drones when they were coming to attack Israel? And he's like, yeah, it's weird for us that you could be sitting in an office and get these medals, but it's very important that you still do because you did save a lot of lives. And so I said, yeah, there was this new Ukrainian that came out that I actually knew that had the most kills with a drone. And he said, we talked about this a lot. At some point in time, there was somebody that had the most kills with a samurai sword. He was the greatest samurai warrior ever. And
It's a very good point.
Yep. At some point in time, somebody with an M1 Garand killed more than anybody else. And then somebody with a HK416. And then now we're at drones. And so this is a different type of warfare. It's evolved. And so the tactics, techniques, and procedures in which people are using them are changing. And we're on the forefront of how that's changing. And so the lessons that we bring over there to our guys here are pretty great because our guys, Americans, we're a little arrogant, right? We just are.
Yeah.
So we think the next way we're going to do war is the way that we did war in Iraq and Afghanistan. And it's not. That's not how war is fought anymore. Yeah. It's not what we will do. We've never done war the same way twice. Everybody learns and we do something else. The next conflict the United States gets in will not be like the Ukrainian and Russian war because we don't fight like that, and we're not going to be fought like that. So we're going with what we don't know yet, and so we're developing things that we don't know based off the experience that we can gather. And so a lot of Americans now are saying, the old guard is like, yeah, we're never going to fight like that. The younger one is like, no, I think we are going to fight like that. So being able to bring those experiences back over here and say, well, this is what we're doing now, and allowing these people who have been fighting war for 20 years and then the young kids that are about to do it now, not young kids, the young men that are doing it now, kind of carrying that torch. You get to put their mind at how to work this and create a new thing that somebody else hasn't done yet. So a lot that we're using to recreate.
There's a Marine Corps commercial that's been out for about 2 years now. That when it first came out, I was like, man, you're kind of hyping this drone thing. See if you can find it, Jake. The Marine Corps, United States Marine Corps commercial, and just put drones. It'll probably come up on YouTube. But it's pretty cool. I'm just curious if the drone they're using, if you're familiar with it or what.
I don't know which
what
one.
they
It's probably the
use.
Puma, right? It's probably the Puma.
Puma, okay. See if you can find it there. But it's interesting where they're giving a flash of what they think the new battlefield is going to look like. And the Marine Corps has moved away from tanks, like the M1A1 Abram. It's not in the fleet anymore. They're leaving that to big Army.
Yeah, I think the Marines, under their new leadership, and the leadership's been there a few years now, they're really thinking on their toes. They're saying, hey, the next war is not going to be fought against a bunch of farmers in a dirt field. It's going to be fought near peer against a country that can do as much damage to us.
Yeah.
And I kind of think they're taking the regular 03 Marine and making him an Army Ranger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's been that's it, Jay. It's been very similar. I mean, Marines and Rangers have always been competitive with each other because we're like, well, if you go back and you read Water Beneath the Walls, talks about the spec war beginning of, Robert's Rangers all the way up to modern day SEAL. And the Marines in politics with the Navy Admiral really gave up that light infantry Marine that the Army Rangers have really taken hold of. And if you go back and read that book, Water Beneath the Walls, pull that Milligan. Have you read this book?
No.
It's a great book. This is a great read. It's about 600 pages, maybe not quite 600, but yeah, pull it up on the screen so we can show it, and then we put it in the comments. You mentioned one that you recommended earlier too.
What's the book called? Sorry.
Water Beneath the Walls.
Relentless Strike is another one that kind of gave you the history of our special forces and how we would land and get shot up and to the current tactics. A lot of history
There you go.
in that.
That's it. Yep. So highly recommend this read by Water Beneath the Walls, The Rise of the Navy SEALs. And Ben Milligan, who is a SEAL commander, wrote this book. But he goes back in and talk about how, man, we screwed up special warfare and learn from mistakes, right? The 72 hours of crying and, oh, God, we screwed this up, to where we are today and how we've had to learn from our mistakes to create the modern NSW. No disrespect to the guys at Delta, but there's really, I don't want to steal from the book, but he goes into specific detail of where the special warfare community almost died. It almost went away after Vietnam. So really interesting read that I think can give you some really good perspective. So, we talked about a lot today. I'd love to get you back in the future, and we'll do a catch-up, do another conversation again. Maybe we'll do lots of these with you and I working together now. Any parting words, any thoughts that you want to leave folks with today, and any exciting
guys,
news?
Stay motivated. Do something that you're afraid to do. Most things, Americans don't do things because they're afraid, and they're just afraid because they don't know.
Yeah.
So go do something you're afraid to do. Go get your passport and leave the country. Go do that. Like, you should do that once in your life. But yeah, when you
Go
fail,
do hard things.
Go do hard things. When
Yeah.
you fail, no matter what, in 72 hours, pick yourself back up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Give yourself a time to grieve,
Yep.
but then
You gotta
pull your pants
gotta
up,
go back to work.
dust yourself off. I think it's great advice. Trey, thank you so much,
Thanks,
sir.
Kenny. Appreciate you.
Yep, that was a weak handshake.
It was like I couldn't hardly get it. There we go.
There
Got
we
it.
go. There. It was great having you on the show. Great having the opportunity to work with you. And we're going to come back soon with an update and let you guys know how you can get involved with EchoMav in the near future, either as an owner of one of these badass machines or as a opportunist and potential investment in the future with EchoMav. Stay tuned. Love you guys. Take care.
Blackbox.